FM News Talk 97.1.
On-demand audio.
Joining me on the phone right now is a Republican firecracker. Former New Hampshire Governor John Sununu has been all over the television. He has he most recently took on Andrea Mitchell, which I enjoyed profusely, over the whole 47% remarks from Mitt Romney. Good afternoon, Governor. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you? Happy Friday.
Thank you very much, and thanks for being on with us. I appreciate your frankness, by the way, and I have to say, I was remarking to the rest of the show staff here that it's odd to me because the people who were most strongly pulling for Mitt Romney in the primary seem to be some of the people most eager to throw him under the bus as of late over his remarks here or there, which I found no problem with. I'm a little bit shocked at this. What do you make of some of this? I know you've been outspoken on this issue.
Look, a lot of these folks write columns for a living, and they're struggling every day to find something to say. And as I've said before, they wouldn't hire me to write their column, and I wouldn't hire them to run a campaign.
That's that's absolutely true. The 47% remark. There are a lot of left-leaning pundits out there who basically think that this is the epitaph for the Romney campaign. This is going to be the thing that ends it. But At the same time, here we have an interview from the president where he's talking to Univision. He blatantly lies about Fast and Furious, blaming it on George Bush.
But that's what they do all the time, right?
Yeah, exactly. And given that to me, Governor, seems to be more of a quote-unquote gaffe than anything that Mitt Romney has ever said, which the only mistake that Mitt Romney has made is being honest.
Look, let's talk about the 47 speech. What we have is a campaign in which Barack Obama has started to resort to class warfare. And he really is. He's talking about soaking the rich. He talked about a few years ago redistribution, reinforced that with his comments to Joe the plumber in his last campaign, underscored it when he told the people that you didn't build that the rest of that conversation was that, in essence, you ought to be sharing the benefits of your business with the rest of America because you didn't do it yourself. All of these things that the president focuses on are designed for class warfare. Mitt Romney, in that 47% speech, was giving the scorecard. 47% of the country, according to Rasmussen, according to Gallup, support the president right now. 47% support Mitt Romney. We're fighting over the last 6 or 7%. That's basically what he was saying. And all these, as you call them, left-wing pundits, and they certainly are. That's too polite a term, but we'll go along with it for mixed company. All these folks want to make a big deal out of it. They ought to take a look at the Rasmussen poll that says 64% of America thinks too many people are being supported by the federal government. This is a pervasive reality out there, and if the well-doing, benefited mainstream media doesn't understand that the hard-working payroll people that are on payrolls in America that have jobs are concerned, and that a big problem is that a lot of the 47% that are supporting Obama are out of jobs, and the best thing that we ought to do for them is find them a job. I mean, this is a jobs election, and the pundits keep wanting to avoid it, but in an odd way, they keep stepping back into the fact that it is a jobs election.
Absolutely. I honestly think that the leak, I guess, if that's what you want to call it, of this videotape for the fundraiser, I think it could be a brilliant campaign ad, personally. I wish that Mother Jones would have been able to actually get the other 2 minutes that they cut out, because that would be a great campaign ad. I wish that more people on our side see it that way and would be as enthusiastic about embracing the truth as we are.
They will eventually. But, big revelations sometimes come with little events. And the other night, Obama was on Letterman, and Letterman said, well, I think the national debt is $10 billion, and in the conversation, Obama says, well, I don't know the exact number. Now, how can the President of the United States be so stupid that he doesn't know the $16 trillion debt level? I mean, if you want to talk about a president that's detached, there is a president that's detached. How can you solve a problem if you don't know how big it is? To me, that underscored the biggest problem in Washington today, a president who doesn't know that the debt level is at $16 trillion.
And that's which I think he purposefully just was playing dumb. He was playing dumb because so he wouldn't have to answer it.
He plays dumb exceptionally well.
This whole, we've talked about, I know the media has kind of targeted you here and there. Back in July, I know they went after you. Anything they could do to protect this administration. Now, I realize that, I haven't been in politics as long as a lot of other individuals, but I don't ever recall a moment in our political history where the media was really this far. I was talking to a local liberal pundit last night who even admitted to me that she couldn't believe how much the media was in the tank for this administration. I mean, even over things like Libya, that they could shift attention away from the disaster in the Middle East and try to focus it on Mitt Romney. Is this the worst that it's ever been?
Well, it always, every year it gets worse, so that makes it the worst it's ever been by definition, Look, let's talk foreign policy. I've said it on a couple of other shows. This is the emperor has no clothes moment for Obama's foreign policy. This foreign policy of this president is a disaster. He went out in an effort to create foreign policy on the basis of personal charm. He thought that he was going to charm the world into following him like a Pied Piper. He went and made his Cairo speech. Now, when you poll in these countries, the negative attitude towards the United States has risen sharply since Obama became president. Those are the polls in places like Jordan, Egypt, and North Africa, the Arab countries. It is amazing how much this country has lost respect because we have a president that cared more about honing his own image than restoring respect and firming up respect for America. The Middle East, Northern Africa, the Arab countries are in turmoil right now because they have no respect and don't understand what the United States wants done or is doing. This president is a disaster. The world is it's almost like Nero fiddling while Rome is burning. The foreign policy disasters we have out there are amazing, and I saw a picture on Drudge yesterday. He's sitting with a clown in a clown suit. And it was hard to tell the difference.
I don't think a lot of people would take issue with that. How embarrassing is it for an administration to contradict themselves so many times on the international stage? At first they said, well, Benghazi wasn't a terror attack. This was a completely spontaneous protest from grassroots Libyans. Yeah. And then not even 7 days later, after Egypt's government, Libya's government, so on and so forth, so many people contradicted them. They finally had to accept the obvious. And they contradicted themselves. It seems to go more to devaluing.
Worse than that.
Yeah.
When they're saying a spontaneous attack and caught them by surprise, think about how ignorant this administration is. This is September 11th. This is a day where you know that something terrible might be brought to bear against the United States to remind us of that horrible day, September 11, 2001. And for them to say it was a spontaneous attack and therefore that's why we got caught by surprise is unbelievable. Unbelievable. And there is no way that they can, with a straight face for much longer, deny the evidence that and the presentations made by the president of Libya and the speaker of the Libyan parliament that this was a premeditated attack, that the weaponry that was involved was clearly gathered over time, and that it was well planned, and that they came in from three directions in a military movement, not in a demonstration movement. And for the president, after all of this, to go on Univision yesterday and say once more that it was not a terror, in essence suggest it was not a terrorist
attack. A natural
attack.
Response.
Unbelievable.
Because the people, that's the only response that people, it's natural to have an RPG and heavy artillery. That's just something that everyone has, right?
Yeah, everybody carries them in the back of their car,
When Mitt Romney came out very strong, immediately when all of this stuff hit the press, Democrats, the DNC, all of the regular Obama surrogates said that he jumped the gun with his remarks. was actually happy to see some form of leadership on this. It seems to me, and then of course Barack Obama's first remark was to bash Romney instead of actually condemn these attacks. What do you make when you hear Democrats try to cut down Romney's leadership on this particular issue while demonstrating none of their own?
You know, they're arguing that he was a half an hour too soon. Can you imagine that their criticism is that a comment comes a half hour too soon? Instead of saying, my gosh, we've lost 4 Americans, an ambassador who was probably the best friend that the Libyans ever had in America, and not to condemn the violence instead of condemning the candidate. It boggles the mind. It goes back to what we were talking about before, about the media being in the tank for a president who has failed. You know, and they sit and rehearse, as we saw about a week and a half ago. They sit and rehearse what they're going to say and do and question so that they can have a coherent fence around this president to protect him. You remember when the mic was open and they were preparing their questions for Mitt Romney?
Oh, yes.
Unbelievable. Look, the country's in trouble. We have 23 million Americans not working or underemployed. We have 8.1% unemployment. We have a private sector that refuses to invest while Obama is in office. Let me explain that. The private sector, the business community, with the cash they gather to buy equipment and hire new people, they have more cash today than they have ever had in history. More cash today than they've ever had in history. And they are refusing to buy equipment, they're refusing to buy machinery, and they're refusing to hire until they see the results of this election. And I'm convinced that if it's Obama, that money goes offshore to jobs outside of America.
Yes.
And if it's Romney, you're going to see the biggest, fastest recovery that we've seen in recent years, because this country really needs to turn the corner, and they need a leader that can do that. You know, let me add one more point, and I apologize if it sounds like I'm going on.
No, we love your insight.
Well, look, the president is running around trying to decide whether you fix Washington from the inside or you fix Washington from the outside. The correct answer is you fix Washington from the top. Leadership. Leadership is what changes Washington. Leadership is what produces the bipartisanship that makes the difference. I worked for George Herbert Walker Bush, Bush 41, old Bush. I hope he forgives me for saying that. old Bush. He knew that we had to have bipartisan leadership. And he said, go do it. That's how we generated a bipartisan Clean Air Act, bipartisan Americans with Disabilities Act, bipartisan Civil Rights Bill, bipartisan budget agreement. We fixed problems the country needed to be fixed because we went and did it. And I had to sit down as chief of staff for many days with Ted Kennedy, for example, on bills like the Americans with Disabilities Act, and we argued for hours about wording, but we finally came to a common ground and passed legislation. But it happened because George Herbert Walker Bush said, we need to do it, and he would bring people in constantly to sit down with them and try and smooth the edges around the difficult issues. Leadership starts not inside or outside in the sense that the president's trying to make it. It starts at the top, and we need a president like Governor Romney who did that in Massachusetts with an 85% Democratic legislature. He led them to sound budgets, cutting taxes, and cutting spending.
And that's well said. And there you go. Former New Hampshire Governor John Sununu. It was a pleasure to have you on, sir.
Thanks
You're
for
welcome.
having me on. We'll
welcome
try and
back
do it again
anytime.
soon.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank
Take care.
you.
Have a great weekend.
You too. Take care. Bye-bye.